Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of My Favorite Book. I'm Monica, I work at Booklyn, and I will be your host tonight. You're watching episode number 13, lucky number 13. We are about to hear from Colette Fu, who is going to present the favorite book that they've ever made. But before we get started, I would like to acknowledge that the land from which we're broadcasting is part of the traditional territory of the Lenni Lenape people. Please join us in acknowledging the Lenape community, their elders, both past and present, as well as future generations. I'm going to first tell you about Booklyn Inc., creator of this program, My Favorite Book. We are a nonprofit organization located in Brooklyn, New York. We're celebrating 22 years of promoting artist books as art, as primary research materials, and tools for social justice. We distribute work by artists and organizations within the academic market. We host workshops and exhibitions, and we publish books and archival box sets. We're super excited to be doing our first serialized online program, My Favorite Book. This is a program where we ask 18 different artists to quickly tell us all about the favorite book that they've ever made. Every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday throughout the month of June, we'll have a new episode for you from 7 to 7:30. Check our website for a full schedule, or you can drop in any night, and we'll have a new episode for you. And I'm going to flash our details here. This is where you can find us on Instagram at Booklyn Art. You can find us on our own website, booklyn.org, or on Linktree/Booklyn. There are lots of fun links and things to do and get, namely the free copy of our education manual, recently redesigned and re-edited. Super free to download. We highly recommend it. I lastly want to thank the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs for supporting My Favorite Book. Thank you. Okay, so tonight, this is what we're here for. We are delighted to introduce Colette Fu, who is going to present A Day in the Terraced Rice Fields. I'm going to read her bio very briefly. I'll hand it over to her, and they're going to talk for about 15 minutes. They have a short video to watch while she talks, and then we'll do a brief Q&A. So all of yous out there on YouTube, you can put your questions or your comments in the chat for Colette, and we'll get them to her. Okay, so Philadelphia-based artist Colette Fu makes complex three-dimensional compositions that incorporate photography and pop-up paper engineering. Her pop-up books are included in the National Museum of Women in the Arts, the Library of Congress, the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and many private and rare archive collections. Colette's numerous awards include a 2020 Joan Mitchell Artists and Sculptors Grant, a Meggendorfer Prize for Best Paper Engineered Artist Book, and a Fulbright Research Fellowship to China. In 2017, Colette created the world's largest pop-up book, measuring 21 by 14 feet, which I hope she talks about briefly, because it's fantastic. This is a book where people were invited to enter the book physically. Colette teaches pop-up courses and community workshops to marginalized populations at art centers, university, and institutions internationally. So without further ado, I'm going to give you Colette Fu. Hey, Colette, how you doing?
Hi, Monica. I'm good. How are you?
I'm great.
Thank you for that lovely introduction. I miss, this is so hard to just see yourself. Thank you for that introduction, and I miss seeing you guys at book fairs and events, and I hope to see you soon. So today I'm going to talk about a project I've been working on since 2008. It's called We Are Tiger Dragon People, and it's a series of photographic pop-up books about the different ethnic minority groups of China. And the book I'm going to present tonight is a relatively new one. So as other artists have mentioned in their presentation, it's not necessarily my favorite book, but it's one of my most recent books that is taking a new direction that I plan on following. So some background about the project. So China has 55 ethnic minority groups that represent roughly less than 9% of the population, and the rest, 91% or so, represent the majority, which is called the Han. I learned in the 90s when I went to China for the first time to teach English that my mother was from a group called the Noso Yi, and I stayed in China for 3 years and wanted to learn more about not only the Yi but other minority groups in that region, because in the province I was in, Yunnan province, there are at least 25 of those ethnic groups residing there. So first I'll share a couple of books from this series that so give you a kind of a context of this new book, how it relates. So this is Dye Food. It's one of the first books that I editioned, and it is it's literally a pop-up book of Dye Food, and the Dai, D-A-I, are a minority group in Yunnan province. They reside in an area called Xishuangbanna. They're related to the Thai, and Xishuangbanna literally translates in Dai language as 12 and 10,000 terraces. So Xishuangbanna translates as 12,000 terraces, which reflects the agricultural abundance of the area. And this is literally about Dye Food. Dye Food is sweet, spicy, bitter, sour, like Thai food, but it doesn't use, Dye Food doesn't consist of much coconut milk and fish sauce. And so one thing I wanted to mention was I moved to Philly with a friend from college that was opening a Thai restaurant. So I worked in this restaurant for many years. So I have a strong connection to Thai food also. So this is, here, I'll just get closer. This food is delicious, and you guys in New York might have access to Thai food, but it's pretty rare outside of China. So, and then another a book that I made to go with Dye Food is Uyghur food. So Uyghur food, I'm sure most of you know that the Uyghur are a minority group in northwest China, Xinjiang province, that are persecuted. And in 1949, a large percentage of the area was Uyghur, Xinjiang province, but less than half now reside, as the Han have majority group have encroached into the area, and the thousands of Uyghur people are in re-education camps, and the area is one of the most heavily policed areas in the world. But so this one, I traveled to Xinjiang in 2014, and I want to say that Xinjiang literally translates as new territory in Mandarin Chinese, but the Uyghur people call the area East Turkestan because they are Turkic people. So they are well known for their grapes, grapes, and their bread. This is naan that is hand punched, and each piece of bread is a work of art. But I'll just show you to you a little bit quicker. And then the front simulates the kebab cart that was inside. So now I'll move on to A Day in the Rice Terrace Fields. So Day in the Rice Terrace Fields is inspired by Lothar Meggendorfer, So Lothar Meggendorfer was a German 19th century illustrator and cartoonist, but also a huge innovator of movable books. Unfortunately, he was also known for colonialistic themes, which were very prevalent at the time too. So this is International Circus. This is one of the first pop-up books that I was interested in because I actually in grad school made a circus book, and it's an accordion. And then you can imagine those flipping down. But so there's this book, A Day in the Zoo, which is published by the same publisher, but it is anonymous. So this is a reproduction of the antique pop-up book from that from the 19th century, and I'm not going to open it fully, but so you can see. You know, laugh at the monkeys having fun in the monkey house. Peer at the fishes swimming around in their aquarium. So Day in the Rice Terrace Fields is here. And Monica, I guess now would be a good time to show the video. So the Red Yao women of Huangluo village, Guangxi province, wash their long hair in fermented rice water. Their village lies just 1 kilometer south of Ping'an terrace rice fields. Construction of the terraces began in the Yuan dynasty and continued until the early Qing dynasty when construction was completed. They cut their hair only once in life during a coming of age ceremony when they become old enough to marry. The women add this piece as an extension to their real hair that often grows up to 7 feet long. A second extension is made from hair that has fallen out during combing. As grooms should be the first to view their uncovered hair, unwed women wrap their heads in black cloth. The women believe that their hair embodies their spirit and that long hair brings longevity, wealth, and good fortune. The longer the hair, the more fortunate one will be. So when I print all my photos on photo paper and then mount to cardstock, or sometimes I mount photo to photo to have double-sided, and then I like to use Chinese brocade. Chinese brocades when I can find a good reason to use it. And so these women, when you're visiting the rice terrace fields, they come up to you, and I was there with a friend, Sally, and you can pay money, and they will take their hair down for you, and you can take a picture with them. And what I think is interesting is recently a curator / librarian was talking about this book and saying that Miss Fu, had taken these photos when the women were taking their hair down for American tourists. And I told the librarian that they took it down for me. So I was the American tourist. So I think I can't really verbalize what's going on in this book, but I think it's really complex because also at the time, my friend was from Santa Fe. She's Western looking, and people thought I was a tour guide. Is that 15 minutes?
Hold on, we're back. I just want to take a minute to introduce Marshall Weber. He's the directing curator of Brooklyn, and we invited him on because he's been around as long as Brooklyn has worked with Colette Fu, and I assumed that Marshall might have some interesting comments or some questions for Colette.
Well, one, Colette, I mean, if you want to, because I think that one thing I notice about the reception to your books is that people can often get carried away with the elegant structures and really the really excruciating craftspersonship that you put into the work. And I think people undervalue your photography and your really perceptive ethnography. And it's interesting to me that I feel like in some ways your work was really premature to kind of the awakening of kind of stereotypical racial, class, and all other kind of issues. Like your books would discuss all these issues, and I saw them very clearly in your presentations of them from the time I met you and when you were presenting the books, my experiencing of them. But I think some of these topics are scary especially for white Americans to address. And so they're kind of like, this book is really beautiful, but it's not saying anything about demographics in China or, subjectivity of photography. And I think that's what's really, to me, that content is as engaging as your engineering. And it seems like you are suggesting your last comment, which was a little uncomfortable, kind of, to me, highlighted that phenomenon. And I'm wondering if you wanted to, I'd love to hear you talk more about that.
So recently I was on a panel about cultural appropriation, and I wanted to be on it because I wanted to get in, explore it more, because I still, I'm born in New Jersey. My mom is Yi, but she was raised in Hong Kong and educated in Baltimore. My dad, is Chinese from Han Chinese from Shandong province and educated in Taiwan and Baltimore also. They met on the Johns Hopkins campus. So, and then I'm making work about these minority groups in China. And it started as, as a self-exploration, but at some point I can't help but wonder, when am I exploiting them? But, a minority maybe can't, is in a different position of power when representing a minority, right? But maybe in China, maybe here I'm considered a minority, but having gone to many different places, abroad, whether it's China or Morocco, I'm not really a minority there. I'm an American. So I try to do things from, it's somewhat intuitive. I don't want to overanalyze, but I'm starting to get stuck a little because I'm trying to be more thoughtful. So with this last book, I'm showing. I feel like I'm all showing that I am also the spectator too, while maybe sometimes I'm the object. And in the book, there's a Westerner there because he literally I had a good photo of a Westerner, but this woman here, this was someone I photographed in Shanghai. So yeah. So I'm like, am I her? but yeah.
I have a follow-up question, if you don't mind, and then I also want to get to a question we do have in the chat too. Do you, I mean, it's clear that you're thinking about yourself relative to the material that you're working with. Do you ever put yourself in your work, like a photograph of your work in the context of what you're presenting in the work, or have you positioned like what to you stands for you in the work?
I just did. Let me sit here.
She's gone.
I'll take a sip.
This is what happened. Well, so I made this tunnel book, and it's made with these different patterns from the Nosu moms minority group, and they use red, yellow, and black, and it's like different patterns of from their armor. I mean, from their shields, because they were good fighters, and lacquerware and tables, etc. But so in the way back, I don't think you can see it that well, but it's a picture of me. Maybe this side you can see it better. Okay, It's a picture of me with a woman from my mom's ancestral village, but that was when I was 24. That's the only time I put myself in work.
Let me channel this question to you from Jade. She says, Colette, have you come across any other cultures where hair is as valued as what you described before?
I haven't really explored it, so yeah, I feel like hair is valued in a lot of cultures, especially indigenous cultures. Like in certain groups in China, the men have tufts of hair that just grow and it's closer to God,
Yeah, that seems like a question that might not apply to the research that you've done, because you have focused on indigenous cultures in China.
Like I don't know, isn't it the Victorian times when they did a lot of hair art?
I think so, yeah. Not to mention in African American culture and African cultures, a lot of hair, and that's completely out of the realm of our discourse right now. But just to answer the question in some way that continues you on.
This is the second book I've done on hair.
Which was the first one?
It was a hair swinging dance.
Oh, okay.
I love that book. Yeah, that's a great book.
I just wanted to introduce what I feel what I experience when you open your books, and maybe you could talk a little bit about that, which is just it feels like joy sprouting, like coming into your space. Like it's like there's nothing, and then there's just like it feels very cinematic, like there's things flowing into space that feel a little like in the movement of the presentation, it's a little out of control. It's like, to what extent are they going to open up and unfold? But because they're engineered, there's you can have confidence in the structure. But in that moment where, I think the first time I met you, you were opening your books and kind of showing them to me, and you had confidence that they were books and they were going to stop unfolding. But as a viewer, I don't know that. I assume that from what my brain tells me about what books do and don't do. But when you open them, it's like the movement that they all have. You're kind of in this moment where, like, it's a little MC Escher, like stairs kind of moving and dimensions are shifting. And I think of that a lot with the biggest pop-up book ever made, which is one that you made that we'll just say it is. But anyway, so that was kind of a multi-layered comment question. But if you could talk about whether the idea maybe of joy or just the wow factor is something that has compelled you to make this work, and to what extent that joy or wow factor factors in to the research component, or what draws you to working on this subject matter?
So the wow factor, I think, is a big part of it. And the contrast of nothing to a lot, kind of don't judge a book by its cover, which I've always felt about people. Don't judge a person by, when you just meet them, like, and I feel like I get that a lot, like I feel like people are judging me all the time by just the way I look, like, this is off target, but I was off topic, but I think it's funny because I've been trying to make a work about it, but I was in the grocery store. This was a long time ago. This was high school, but I was trying to buy chapstick. And I asked the guy at Kroger, and I said, excuse me, do you sell chapstick here? And he said, I'm sorry, ma'am, we don't sell chopsticks here. So like, just stuff like that. And that is just one of numerous things. And it's just, what's interesting about that is like, it's so normal for me that I didn't even think it was that interesting. But this year has kind of started to make me think more about how that a lot of people are not aware of how, how that is happening. So wow. So the first time I opened a pop-up book at the bookstore, Borders, just went, it was Wizard of Oz by Robert Sabuda. And it made me go, whoa. And, but then at the same time, I could see the angles and stuff. So I felt like it was, so my dad's a mechanical engineer, or retired. He was a mechanical engineer. And actually math was one of my favorite subjects in high school, believe it or not. But, so I saw that I could understand it. And then I thought, let me do this with photos. And it's something that I hadn't seen many people do. And I thought it was a good way of presenting subject matter that normally people would not be interested in because they just go, whoa, what was that? And then afterwards, maybe this story can go inside. And making it is the challenge of making it, and I think that's why I keep making it more difficult. Every book I add an element of complication, and I also learn something like fray check, how to stop fraying on fabric, which is, for those of you that weren't here, this is a new book that I'm working on, and it's inkjet fabric, and fray check stops the fray. And you don't want, it looks like eye drops, so you don't want to put that in your eye. I completely forgot what I was talking about. So the process of making the books holds my attention and challenges me. And I think when I figure, I guess this is just with a lot of process, once you figure it out, what you're trying to do, there's a surge of dopamine, of a reward, a feeling of reward. And I think a lot of times that's what I'm doing. I'm giving myself dopamine without medication.
I love that. I could relate to that.
Right?
Right, Marshall?
The pharmacognitive theory of creative practice. No, I think it's true. I think and I think artists keep this a big secret, because I think we've made this whole mythos of how you have to suffer for your art and how hard it is to make art and how special it is, when really it's just a ubiquitous playtime. You know, you're doing things and you put that frame together and it's like, oh, or you like color in that area and it's like, there's an element of play to it, which I think is really foregrounded in your work, because many people still associate pop-ups with children's books. So at Brooklyn, we've kind of always said that artist books are kind of like the children's books for adults, because in general, by the time you get to be an adult, you're reading these like boring books that are just all text. It's really boring. And children get to see all these like amazing engineered books and pop-up books and different formats and interesting printing and great illustrations. And I think that kind of joy is present in your work. And I think it taps into that childhood experience, as, people call it flow, but it's really kind of play. I mean, I think as an artist, many artists have this connection to play. You play around in the studio and you figure something out. Not that it isn't also hard work, but I think what you're saying is, has an element of truth, not just for you, but I think for a lot of people who are privileged to create.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and you talking about children's books, and one of my first inspirations was Who Took the Cookie from the Cookie Jar, and it was a pop-up book though by David Carter, and that book has like an element of suspense.
Colette, I want to thank you so much for sharing with us. And I would also like to thank everybody who's here watching, and to let you know how you can find Colette in the world. On Instagram, it's at Colette_Fu. And if you go to ColetteFu.com, you will find loads of really fun things to look at, pop-up books. And I believe if you just go to the website, you'll find a video of a curatorial team opening up a human-sized, whatever that means really, I guess human scale pop-up book in a gallery setting that you can actually step into. I'm not sure if people actually could do that in the exhibition.
They did. Yeah, it wasn't meant to last, but it did last, and now it's at the Taubman Museum permanently. But I'd made it so that I wanted people to walk inside, and thus why I only had one spread, because I wanted people to go in it.
So Colette, can you tell people if there's anything coming up in the world where folks can find you on exhibition or at a fair, or if there's some advice you could give in terms of like how people can actually see your books and hold them in your hands in different collections?
So I'll have a show at the Center for Book Arts this fall. I don't think the dates have been revealed yet. And then another show at the Rosenbach Museum and Library here in Philly. Ditto, as in I don't know the dates either. And then my books are in lots of different collections around the country. So yeah, you can, I have that listed on my website if people are interested in checking them out of a library and looking at them closer up. Otherwise, East Coast, New York and Philly this fall.
Cool. Marshall, do you have any finishing thoughts?
Yeah, it's too bad we don't have a lot more time, because I feel like there's a lot more to talk about. Because one of the things, there's two other things that always interested me about Colette's work. And one of them is that she's often doing teaching work in underserved communities. That's really interesting, and I think kind of informs her work. And also, she's just one of the funniest, most perceptive people I've met, and her humor is just, she's hilarious. So I just wanted to add that.
Thanks, Marshall.
I will second that too.
Thanks, Marshall.
Well, thanks to our audience for tuning in. Sorry, Marshall, go ahead.
Being next to Colette at any art or book fair is always the best thing about that event.
Maybe I'll see you at Codex.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay, so please join us tomorrow. We're going to talk to Gun Zier, another great artist that we've been fortunate enough to work with, talking about his favorite book, the newly published Solar Grid, I believe published by Radix Media, other friends of ours who are totally worth checking out also. Just as a reminder, you can find a full schedule of future episodes of My Favorite Book on our website. And if you like what you see, please subscribe to our channel. I think we have 40 subscribers now. Woo! We're coming along. This is really fun, you guys. So we'll see you tomorrow. For Gun Zier, Colette, you are awesome. I feel so blessed that you joined us tonight and showed us your books. And again, if you ever have a chance to see a Colette Fu book in person, just do it. It is so amazing. I look forward to the next time that I can actually do that too. Good night, Colette and Marshall.
Good night.
Thanks.